This is beautiful. What is that, velvet?
Peace and love is the key.
You are now about to experience the J&J-Life podcast with your host, Reya'Sekhmet.
But my name combines Rhea, which means a connection to Ra.
J&J-Life podcast.
Please smash that like button. Peace and love is the key. Hotep and Aakhu'Ra family. Peace and love is the key. I'm Reya'Sekhmet. Thank you for tuning into the J&J-Life podcast. We have Barbara sitting in on the discussion, coming from you from Aakhu'Ra studio here in Des Moines, Iowa. Today we're going to talk with someone that has a strong message about justice and equality in the face of systemic oppression. We will dive into his book, 100 Years of Anti-Black Policing, as he is another one of our truth tellers bringing awareness and consciousness to our people. So without further ado, I'm happy to welcome the awesome Avery Pearl II. Thank you, Cousin Avery, for joining us on this glorious day.
Well, thank you both for having me, and peace to the family. You know, it's great to be here, great to be alive, carrying on the torch and the legacy, and I'm excited to get into the conversation we have today.
Wonderful. Barbara, how's it going for you today?
Well, that's a great question, Reya'Sekhmet, and peace to the family. To answer your question, all is definitely well. I'm excited, as I always am, when we have these great discussions. And family, before we get too far into the discussion, as we always do, we want to give reverence to the ancestors and the elders for all they have done and are doing. And today we invoke the ancestor Sandra Arrington, the ancestor Julius Arrington Jr., and the ancestor Gwen Marie Arrington Dixon, all into this session today.
Ashe. Family, while the J&J-Life squad don't claim to be experts in all aspects of anti-Black policing, we approach this as students of information, open to correction if needed. Our intention is to represent this knowledge well.
Facts.
Rhea, why for you is this platform important to be able to speak and share your wisdom?
Because they just want to spread knowledge with the whole world. That's probably why.
I dig it. That's important.
Yeah.
I would like to say that my podcast is rooted in Blackness, and my audience is a mix of children my age, up to adults who are interested in spiritual and personal development, and anyone from around the diaspora looking to deepen their consciousness and self-awareness.
Facts.
100%. Hey,
I
love
think that
it.
answers the question, actually.
Oh, yeah. Right, too. I love it.
Yeah, she don't waste no time. See,
hey.
Getting right to the business, get to the meat of things.
Real talk.
So, Avery, I want you to know that the J&J-Life podcast was created to give the family a place and platform to embrace their spiritual awakening and consciousness for those that bring forth knowledge that most mainstream platforms wouldn't have done. J&J-Life is dedicated to showcasing the beauty of our culture, educating our people and those that want to learn.
Absolutely. And Avery, we appreciate you taking time out of your day and sharing your story and your journey with us. So family, from us to you, much respect.
Much respect. I appreciate it.
Facts. Okay, Cousin Avery, with that being said, and before we dive too deep, will you share with the family a little about yourself and your journey to becoming Avery Pearl II, the person of today?
So for me, it started way back in a rich family culture. I remember my mom having a sweatshirt with Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Frederick Douglass. And she always would tell us who each person was, the talented 10th, all their stories. And she'd say the pros and cons. This person was about this, but they weren't about this. This person was about this. And so it really cultivated a passion for understanding the Black history and the Black liberation struggle that we've had in this country historically. And with that, we had encyclopedias all around. We were homeschooled for a decent amount of time. So I'm a big advocate of the homeschooling and being our own teachers for our children first. And she took us to the library, the lock and dams, bunch of historical places around the community. We had almanacs at home, always being able to look up stuff. And so really she cultivated a space of knowledge and self-awareness for us before we knew what she was doing, And that ultimately led me as a very curious child to be able to ask big questions and expect big answers in return. And the world doesn't always favor kids who ask big questions. And I give respect to all the youth who are looking for these questions and these answers so we can continue to prolong the work that's been done generationally. But I remember sitting back one time and thinking like I was mad at Martin Luther King Jr. And it's crazy because I was mad at him because I felt he did my job. Like he came here and solved the world's problems, uplifted Black people. And my mom said, look around us. There's still work to be done. It didn't end at him, you know? And so that made me realize that even though the work historically is really centered around the 1960s civil rights movement, that the work is a generational process that happens each decade, each month, each day, and that we carry the torch while we're here to prolong that work into the future and be able to pass the torches off to those who are going to come after us in this process. And so that was my root. My mom would always be at the school saying, make sure you get him in philosophy class, make sure you get him in history class. That's what he loves. And she was my biggest advocate. You know, I got turned down from National Honor Society, and she's like, no, he understands everything they're talking about. He can do it. I don't understand why he wasn't in it. He needs an opportunity. And I got opportunities because she believed in who I was and where I was going in my personal development. And so she was my rock when it comes to this liberation, self-awareness conversation, self-determination. She just was able to overcome a lot of obstacles and still remain solid in our lives. And that allowed me to bump my head as a child and still have the love I needed to course correct and come back to self when I was ready. And ultimately, I'm a spiritual late bloomer, I'll say. I didn't really get into my spiritual awakening until I'll probably say my 20s, being out of college, opening a business with my brother, and really just wanting to do more in the world and not having the foundation internally to build upon. And it came a time where the world was just too crazy, you know, pandemic, etc. And I needed that foundation, and the universe just clicked for me. It was like, hey, I'm here. And from that moment on, you know, and from that moment on, it really was an unraveling of things that I had already been studying and digging into, but I feel like I understood the center of the conversation more when I became more spiritually awakened and able to connect dots in between different cultures, religions, conversations, narratives, and start to see that it was one big conversation, all about the same source that we all have inside of us. And right now, I'll get into a little bit more later on, but I'm an urban developer. And so I'm focused on community revitalization. And a lot of people think that development starts by building something, but really it starts in the hearts and minds of people. And that's the spiritual aspect of community, of the work. And this book, 100 Years of Anti-Black Policing, was a manifestation of that energy, my own personal journey through what needs to be done in our community to uplift ourselves and advocate for ourselves. And the work I do today is more of the same, but that really has been my journey into the self-awareness of Avery Pearl II.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, it's always so enlightening to hear about the past that shape us. Since my cousins and I are homeschooled, we are always interested in learning more about the topics in urban development and other related subjects.
Yeah, family. You said a lot. There's many directions we can take this discussion here today. So we're just going to kind of just let the flow, as Reya'Sekhmet has said in other videos, just let the flow go.
100%.
We're just going to ride the wave, man, and have a great discussion. But again, there's so much that I didn't know, fam, when it comes to your upbringing and understanding that personal journey behind the voice helps me helps us, connect more deeply with your message. And you had mentioned encyclopedias. I remember as a kid, I was raised by my grandmother. I was raised by grandmother Betty Jean, and Grandpa JC and Grandma Betty Jean had a shelf of encyclopedias. So I'm very familiar with all that knowledge that we used to tap into with those encyclopedias and things of that nature. So I understand when you said, how your mom laid that groundwork and giving you that foundation for you to stand on, because I also was someone who reaped the benefits of the Minority Scholars Program, the Upward Bound Program. I was able to get positioned. And you know what? And I want to thank cousin Tonya Davis Patterson, who helped plant my feet on and into those programs, because as she was coming out of them, she reckoned me to get into them and help me get on that path. So much respect to cousin Tonya, who was out there, and hopefully she'll watch this episode. Because I want to make sure that we give her flowers, and much respect to cousin Tonya.
Facts.
And we have so many great matriarchs and patriarchs in our family that really laid a foundation of how to live with spirit. Speaking of Grandma Betty Jean, she lived with spirit her whole life. She's someone who really loved life and was able to express that love to the ones around her. And there's so many little gems that we pick up from those who come before us, that if we're not intentional about the process as learners and givers, that can be falling through the cracks, and that's where these conversations like we're having today, they're so essential, because if we don't take time to be able to invest in our capacity, we can't produce what we need to produce down the road. I tell my mom, like, we can't sharpen the sword and use it at the same time. We got to be able to take time to dig deep, plant roots, strengthen ourselves, and then go back out into the world. And it's a blessing to see what you all with the family are doing, sincerely.
Much respect. And, we honor Grandma Betty Jean, and I'm thankful that Reya'Sekhmet was able to spend time with her, quality time with her. So, she is the pillar of our family. So, again, peace to the ancestor, Grandma Betty Jean, the Queen Mother, Grandma Betty Jean. Ashe. So, Avery, speaking of your journey, will you share with the family as to how did your environment, or better yet, how did your schooling influence your perspective and your work when it comes to social justice?
So for me, growing up in Watertown from poverty, we fit into a lot of the stereotypical statistics of poverty, of being Black in America. And despite those stereotypes and expectations, our mom always told us we aren't our circumstances. We are how we choose to respond to our circumstances. And so that always allowed us to keep our light, even if the times were dark or something was going on to where the world would want us to think that we were inferior in some way. She always let us know it's not what you have, it's what you are. And that was the pillar that allowed us to, even though we came from an area where people don't see much success come, we became those roses that grew from the concrete, And we were always in accelerated classes. I was oftentimes the only Black kid in my class. And every time certain topics came up, I'm the person who looked at to answer, and had teachers who I knew had racial biases that were teaching me history, and we had butted heads often. And so and growing up playing sports and having more fluent teammates who lived in more affluent areas, and wondering why they had the money to be able to afford to do this and that, and we didn't have it. it really put a social awareness into my life that I seen something's wrong. Just because we live over here, life is like this for us, but because they live
Right,
over
right.
there, life is different. And I really wanted to understand why. That was a big thing for me. And in my digging into why, I began to find Black scholarship that
Mm-hmm.
really spoke to not the overarching stereotypical views I heard on the news, but the actual Black identity conversations, Black Panthers, the Frederick Douglasses, the miseducation of the Negro, all these
Mm-hmm.
different literatures, autobiography of Malcolm X. I remember getting mad at my friends one time because I felt like they were being racist, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
all my people, but like this don't feel right with me. So I stopped hanging out with them for a month, read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and really
Mm-hmm.
just distanced myself because it felt like I was in two different worlds. You know,
Right.
kind of like that Detroit Red conversation of growing into Malcolm X. I had a mask on that I was trying to appeal to friends, to be popular, be cool. And over time, I had to let that mask go. You know, I had to realize that I was chasing once and I wasn't getting what I needed. And
Right.
that really led me to dig deeper into myself, dig deeper into our history, and not just take information for surface value, but actually understand what is the overarching multi-generational conversation and efforts that we've been putting in as a people, and what do I do in this lifetime to be able to carry that out and build a solid legacy that breaks negative cycles and reaffirms positive cycles so the next generation has something worthy to inherit. And so
Wow.
that's been my drive over time. I've known since probably about 14 that I wanted to have a community consulting business that's able to look at all the problems, give the community solutions to be able to enact, work
Mm-hmm.
with community leaders to empower them. Because I understood we're just a consultant. We're not the ones who live the experience and are actually there every day. But to be able to take this around urban communities across America and address these impoverished issues, the Black American issues, and then go global and do the same thing once we get it down here. And as a child, I'm like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to do it, but I know politics sounds like it's the right route for me to take. And so, getting out of college, I wanted to become a lobbyist, but then I looked, DC was crazy. I graduated
Right.
college in 2018. And so at that point, I had seen enough. I was like, I don't know about all that. And then also with it, I looked around the community, living in the Quad Cities, and seen all these issues. Living in Watertown, I seen the Hoffman Building go empty for decades. Looking in Western Rock Island, I seen Franklin Field sitting there empty for decades. Those are community schools that got torn down and left a void in the community that had never
Yeah.
been rebuilt. You know, there was no after school program, community center in Watertown when we were growing up. We was just riding bikes around parks, maybe stop at
Yeah.
somebody's house, get some snacks, you know, and be home by the street lights on. That's the whole,
Yes.
well, that was the rules. And
It's
like,
interesting that you say there was no community programs for your generation, but for your mom's generation and my generation, we had programs. You know, you knew um, all the families that were on the block, and you knew most of the families that were in the community because it was a Black community when we were growing up. We had the Aldrich Center, Miss Florence Aldrich, you know, where they had those programs where we learned arts and crafts, where we had free lunches, that everybody ate and you learned something along the way, and we had those history programs. So yeah, I just wanted to, respectfully chime in, to what you were saying, family, and just to know that, wow, things have truly changed. And I was a product of Hoffman. I went to Hoffman. So
right.
yeah, I know where you're at. I know the area, and wow, it's the transition is blowing my mind right now.
And just seeing the destabilization in our communities across the board in the Quad Cities and beyond, it really put a passion on my heart to be able to do something about it, not in 10 years, but immediately, essentially. And so that was really what led me to really root into the Quad Cities. And the pandemic honestly slowed me down from doing music and really had me reevaluate my why in life. And
Right.
musically, I always felt, sadly,
Mhm.
our community gives more credibility to musicians than we do to scholars. And
Facts.
it really made me want to use music as a tool for revolution, despite the fact that it has been overtaken by mainstream industries to produce our demise at this current point in time. It originally was a tool for us to be able to keep our stories alive, share our rich heritage, and be able to teach the people how to move and how to live from a distance. It was scholarly originally. And so that really was my drive. And I wanted to be able to do 2-day stops in cities, one day work with a nonprofit and support them in a fundraising effort. The next day have a show, part of the proceeds go back to the nonprofit. And unbeknownst to myself, I didn't realize I'd be getting into nonprofit down the road, but that was my why musically. And I hit a point where I was meeting with record labels. I was meeting with the who's, big cousin Joey put me on the game. I had Vice Media wanting to do a docu-series with me, up and coming artists meets with major record labels. A bunch of good stuff was happening, but the pandemic really hit. And then they were like, okay, let's wait a week. Let's wait 2 weeks. And it just kept going. And so I had to really soul search. And at first, it felt like things were being taken from me. But after really sitting down with God and understanding everything was happening for a reason, I realized it was giving me an opportunity to cultivate the other side of the music, not the musical talents, but the community impact side. And that got me into the nonprofit sector. Started off tutoring at an after school program, doing remote learning, and worked all the way up to assistant to the director. And so it was a K through 12 all family after school program, holistic wraparound services. You call anytime, we'll help with whatever we can. And so it was a deep dive into just community service, the youth, everything. That took me
Well,
to, yeah, and I don't want to get too deep about the work history. So if y'all got any questions, y'all can ask
oh
too.
no, you're doing fine.
Okay.
I was just gonna you mentioned the good cousin Joey, so I wanted to make sure we give him a proper shout out.
100%.
To the family. Lee England Jr., master
100%.
violinist. We're waiting to get a master class from a master violinist. Come on the show,
Sincerely.
family. Lee England
Hey,
Jr., cousin
him,
Joey. This is a shout out to you, fam.
real talk, him and Lance was our musical inspirations, man. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
being able to get in the studio with them in Diallo basement and just watching them go and hearing about them making beats and them doing the music, and that just drove us. We was writing songs at 8 years old, you know what I'm saying? And just I remember him playing at the Thanksgiving dinners, and he pulled out the violin and playing what was it, Overnight Celebrity, all types of different stuff. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
He definitely put in the work to reap the benefits that he
100%.
has now.
100%.
I'm finding out that education often lays the foundation of our worldview. They can either confine us within predetermined expectations or inspire us to challenge the current situation.
Facts.
So beyond your formal education, did this awakening of self shape the relationship you keep or the advice you get from others?
100%. And that really, it led me to challenging my conditioning, who I thought I was. The ego, I heard someone say the ego is who we became to survive before we had awareness of self. And challenging that is hard. I lost friends, I lost hobbies, I lost comfort, but
Wow.
the comfort that I had was illusionary. It wasn't really real. It didn't bring me more security. It made me less secure. It
Mm-hmm.
really was more destructive comfort. And I had to realize you don't get comfortable in a dark place. You know, you don't fight darkness with darkness. You got to be the light. And really illuminating myself with the light of the creator was what I had to do to overcome a lot of that conditioning and rewrite my script into who I am today. And I think a lot of people don't realize that it is possible to rewrite your story, that we
Mm-hmm.
aren't just who we were in the past, that we all have the power to overcome our trials and turn them into tribulations, but we do need support. And so while the education, I got to meet with great scholars. I went down to Duke and got a master's certificate for the Ralph Bunche Summer Institute.
Mm-hmm.
Presented research at the American Political Science Association out in San Francisco, their annual conference, and
Mm-hmm.
was learning under the former uh, president of the American Political Science Association at the Duke Master School of Political Science. And so
Mm-hmm.
it really got me into a lot of higher ed conversations. And I realized that while I love the higher ed, the research and the work, I really wanted to get in the community and actually start to implement change in real time with the information that I had gathered in the higher education space. And that really is what drove me to take some leaps of faith and just get involved, you know? And
Respect.
yeah, and that's what led me to the after school program. The after school program is we had the juvenile detention center was expanding in Scott County. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and they wanted to expand right across the street from our after school program.
That's Scott
And
County, Iowa, right?
Scott County,
Davenport.
Iowa. Yep, Davenport, Iowa. And
Yep.
so they wanted to expand right into, and it's like the old Davenport Burks Cleaners right across the railroad was our program.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, this community is already dilapidated. It's already underinvested. We don't want to add more blight to this community. And blight is torn down buildings,
Mm-hmm.
jails, prisons, run down, things that make a community look unattractive to the people who live there. And so we didn't want to add more blight to the community by having a detention center right across the street from a place where we're pulling community families in to heal. It was counteractive. And so we really were able to take that conversation to the county board. I was working with third graders to eighth graders, and we're going and presenting to the county board. And at first, they're like, "We can talk to them." And I'm like, "They work for you. Yeah, you can
Exactly.
talk to them." And by
Exactly.
the time we left, they was going up there. I'm going back up again. I'm going back up again. And they was tired of hearing, but they heard them, and they understood that we can make the cities move how we need to when we're organized. And that led me to a bigger conversation. It was a roughly 90% Black youth in the detention center. And while it was 90% Black youth, oftentimes the coalition we had built didn't want to address that aspect. They wanted to keep it just about youth in general. But I had to bring to light, if it's almost 90% Black youth, whatever solution we bring to it needs to specify Black youth because it's a direct correlation. And they were like, well, if you want something Black specific done, you need to go to the Lincoln Center, which is the
Mm-hmm.
center for the Black hub of the Quad Cities, essentially. And so I met with the director there. She said, we're actually hiring for assistant director right now. Would you be interested? I'm like, of course. That makes complete sense. That's exactly what my heart is at. I really want to be able to be the change that I needed as a child. And so it gave me an opportunity to work in the old Lincoln Elementary School, which we converted into a community center, rented the former classrooms out to different businesses and nonprofits, and functioned as a village one-stop shop for services, resources, programming needed to empower the Black Quad Cities community and share that
Right.
rich culture and heritage to the non-Black Quad Cities community. And
Right.
so
Right.
from there, it went to me being able to work and support the West End revitalization efforts, which is the urban development plan for West End Rock Island. I started as a steering committee member and worked my way into one of the coordinators for that plan implementation. And that's where I'm at now, doing the urban development plan as a City of Rock Island employee for West End of Rock Island.
Wow, wow. Respect, family. And you're absolutely right. You know, those people work for the people. And
Sincerely.
you are teaching those young children, those youth that are coming up to have that courage to be able to speak truth to power. And that is crucial out here in today's fight for true justice and freedom. And with that, fam, personal experiences often provide the emotional depth that informs our professional work. They give us the understanding and the passion needed to drive meaningful change. And so I just want the family to reflect on that for a moment, you know, that are listening. You know, what legacy do you want to leave? Once you have that clarity, and every step you take becomes part of a deeper, more effective life journey. So when it comes to fighting for justice, you must be clear and be ready to put your life on the line if necessary. What you think?
Ashe.
That's facts to that?
Yeah.
Can we get some ashes?
Ashe.
Ashe.
And really, for me, I wrote my obituary.
Yeah.
The fourth, Avery Pearl IV. I'm the second, so it's going to be from the perspective of my grandson. And I know reverse engineered wise, decade by decade, what I need to do and how I need to live to be able to go out the way I want to go out and have the legacy that I want to have after I'm gone. Because while the material items are nice, they say trying to build your kingdom on earth is like trying to build a chocolate sandcastle in the desert. It's gonna melt.
Yes.
And so
yes,
the
and we don't want to
spirit,
get hung up on that's and for me, I think that's one of the biggest issues we have in the Black community is that we get hung up on symbols, you know, and symbolism is not something that we should ascribe to because it doesn't get us anywhere. You know, it's just those are just pacifiers to keep us docile, to keep us asleep. And so, yeah, I stay away
the
from symbols.
idols, the idolatry, you know, and really when we can have a false God, that destabilizes everything in our life. And I realized that while a lot of people do treasure material items, the more insidious thing is the ego and being self-centered. Because when you're so busy about what's in it for me, you can't understand what's in it for God. And being God-centered, that's purpose. You know, that's really alignment with the universe, alignment with our actions, our word, and alignment with our results. And if we're not God-centered, we can't get what we need. We can only get what we want by being self-centered. And so what happens when what we want is self-destructive?
Right.
We destroy ourselves.
And as our teacher, and you may have saw the video what we did with Baba Kaba Kamene, as Baba says, is that we are all the divine essence of the creator having a divine human experience. And that's why we do Ma'at, you know, and Ma'at is those principles of living in truth with harmony, balance, order and arrangement, reciprocity, and righteousness.
So Avery, let's move to your book, 100 Years of Anti-Black Policing, as it touches on a legacy of systemic oppression that many still grapple with today. What was the pivotal moment that compelled you to put this traumatic history together?
Oh, you wanted to make sure you got that question out, didn't you?
I'm with it. So really what, and this is a little heavier topic, but there's a book by Ralph Ginsberg, 100 Years of Lynching. And I read it and it spoke to the anti-Black terrorism that swept through the country post-Civil War to early 1900s, about 1860 to 1920. There was a rapid uptick in the amount of anti-Black murderings that were happening throughout the country because we were freed as a people from the codes and the legal laws that were keeping us as a second-class citizen. And when we entered into the political process, the non-Black establishment began to kill off our leaders and force us into a state of political second-class citizenship so that we couldn't become the leaders of our towns, the leaders of our states, the leaders of our country. And that book is what inspired me to write this one, because he used newspaper articles also and said that they were a way that communication was spreading across the nation, and a great way to be able to understand what was the collective narratives, what were the collective narratives going on the land in those time periods. Because a lot of people, their lives and their worldview is built by the media, by the news. And so reading through that book and understanding what he was explaining, my girlfriend and I took a trip to Minneapolis the second day of the George Floyd protests. We got there and we couldn't find Black people. We walked into, it was crazy. And we were looking to be in solidarity and support the family. Couldn't find the family. We found a group of about 15 Black people who were surrounded by the National Guard in an inaccessible location. But the people who were pillaging and spray painting and running in and out of the stores looting, it wasn't us. And I'm looking around, and this is not any racial or anything, but I seen a group of 4 white kids spray painting the building, talking about die pigs, all these types of supposed Black statements. And I walked up to them, I asked them, what are y'all doing? Like, why are y'all doing this? And they just said, power to the people, and ran off. And I'm like, this is not what the news is saying is going on up here. This is something completely different. Then I went down to Chicago the next day, and my girlfriend went down there and visited my mom, and it was just chaotic. It was people's frustration. It was the cage bird singing, and people were just like, it was anarchy in both spaces. And it just left me feeling as though I understand the pain, but how can we productively address this pain and process these emotions in a way that pushes the conversation forward, pushes the community forward, pushes the work forward, and explains these aren't just one-off instances. There's a long history of pain in the relationship between the American policing system and the Black community. And that really is what drove me to come back home and write this book. And I kid you not, the spirit was waking me up at about 3 a.m., 4 a.m. every day. And at first I was mad. I'm like, why am I getting woke up right now? I do not want to be awake. I want sleep. And then the spirit had a conversation with me and was like, you need to write the book in this time. That's why I'm waking you up. And it just carried me. And it just, every morning, woke up researching, putting it together, researching more, putting it together, uncovering stories. And I started seeing the patterns that were happening, and things that we were doing today and facing today that was happening in the 1920s. And I'm like, this is crazy that while even me knowing this has been a history, I didn't realize they've been giving us the same pacifiers over and over again to be able to address the symptoms instead of going to the root causes and addressing it. And so what I did theoretically was took 2 instances of anti-Black policing from each year between 1920 to 2020 to showcase that these aren't isolated incidents. There's a bigger picture, a bigger narrative happening, and that there's a history of anti-Black policing that has conditioned the responses on both sides that we have today. And that if we're going to address these responses that are ending up in Black death, the death of Black boys, girls, men, and women, that we need to be able to address the root cause. And not only that, the family needs to be able to understand this system has been set up for our demise. It has not been set up for our protection. While it can change, they have built a system to where if you aren't reading at grade level by 4th grade, they know that they need to invest in a prison in that community to put you in it. And that's the cyclical aspect of the work and being able to share with the generations coming up. That it's
Teach.
a lot going on, and if you don't have a path and a plan, they got one for you. And so
Teach.
it's healing too. There is aspects of being able to say, this happened in my time, this happened in your time. So I understand what you feel and what you're dealing with, so that we can have, really, it's to build more dialogue, more conversations, more narrative change, so that we can have a cohesive plan about what do we do about this repeated process, repeated pattern of anti-Black policing for those who actually care.
Facts.
Facts. And family, documenting our history, a painful history, I might add, it takes incredible courage and emotional too.
Yeah, and it just makes me think of Malcolm. You know, it's like we got to stop all that singing and do more of that swinging, and that swinging not necessarily mean physically, but mentally.
Sincerely.
And before we can do anything, we have to organize within ourselves. And again, family, you dropping a lot of nuggets today for the family, and I just want to commend you for the work that you did in putting into this book, because I went through it, and it's a game changer for the youth that are coming up that may not know these things, because most people, when they're teaching their children, as you look out here now, because our heroes, our so-called heroes, are sports figures and entertainers, whether they be actors or musicians or whatever the case may be, and you think that we've made it, but we haven't made it. I've always tell people that we had, coming out of slavery in the 1870s, we had wealthy Blacks at that time in high positions, whether it be in government or otherwise, that their wealth would rival today's wealth, but they position, those superstars that we have today in those positions and make it look like these are our leaders, and that's far from the truth. So Avery, in your research, what were some of the most staggering discoveries that you found in your book that challenge your perception of law enforcement and its relationship with Black people, or the Black community for that matter?
So the documentary, The 14th, and it came out a while before I wrote the book, but understanding that slavery was illegal, but if you were a criminal, slavery was then permitted and you were forced into a second-class citizenship. And then understanding the mass incarceration system and the prison industrial complex, the conversation we talked about earlier, where they have built prisons to be able to put undesired populations, and people make more money the more people are in those prisons, for the private prison industry. That whole conversation, it puts things into perspective, why our music was hijacked, why our culture was hijacked, the war on drugs, the war on poverty. If you give someone their God, you own them. Yeah. And that's what we've been given, is a false representation of what Blackness means. And so for me, really seeing, there was vindication in the book. I would research something, find out somebody was either falsely accused and murdered, or was sentenced to something, and the family has gone back and remediated that with the state. All charges were dropped. And so there's a healing aspect to being able to rewrite our stories, because thinking your grandfather was a criminal versus thinking your grandfather was wrongfully accused, that manifests two different legacies,
Yes,
and understanding that.
Do you think that the psychological trauma from the accusation is by design a play to keep one's family lineage in that inferior state through the accusation, because it takes more to prove your innocence opposed to them putting the charge on you and accusing you of whatever that crime may have been.
They say if a baby elephant is hammered to a peg, just a little wooden peg, when it's a baby and it can't pull that peg out the ground, when it's a 10-ton animal in the future, it'll never try. And right now, that's the conditioning that we're living under. We've been told we were slaves, not prisoners of war. We've been told that we were criminals, not wrongly accused liberators and messiahs in our own communities. And so when we have to challenge the people who are the fact checkers on what the facts really were, that creates a really it's like a very hard Stockholm syndrome type thing where we begin to love their truth, to be able to affirm ourselves in our lowered condition instead of fighting to uphold our own truth and redefine what it means to be Black in America. And I think that has been the biggest eye-opening thing for me with the book, is that criminality and Blackness are not correlative. Just because we're Black doesn't mean we're criminals. And that's an obvious statement. But when you understand that this institution has connected this conversation to our people, and they say poverty begets crime, not color. And when we understand that these institutions have conditioned our people to believe this is who we are, overcoming that, challenging those narratives, and actually being something new is the work of today. And that really, what the institutions aspects, and how do we report what's going on? How do we get our stories out across the land? How do we communicate with different communities? Like, this is happening to us too. We had great Black communities.
Absolutely.
We've had them. And
I knew them firsthand.
They were bombed, disinvested, leaders were taken out. They were character assassination. A bunch of things has happened to destabilize our work. And we don't, sadly, and I speak for myself, but for my generation too, we're disconnected from that reality. We only see slavery, the civil rights movement of the 60s, the 90s with the 70s, 90s. And then today, if you research, most people only know a couple people from the 60s and slavery, and that's not our full story. And so being able to take that book and just give more context to the story about what's really going on, what's really been happening. Yeah, you say our communities have been crime ridden, but it didn't start with us killing ourselves. It started with y'all killing us. And then we took that culture and started doing it to ourselves. And it's not justified that we do it to ourselves at all. It's a huge problem that we need to address, because our community is self-destructive right now. And we got to get ahead of it. But we learn these conditions from our lived experience, and it's not normal. And seeing the book, the way that anti-Blackness transformed from 1920 to 2020, same game, different tactics.
Yeah,
it was a lot more subvert, a lot less in your face. The closer it got to 2020, but it still is there. We've been fighting for anti-lynching bills since 1920s, and we still are arguing the federal government to implement these things as if we don't have case of the need for these changes. And really, it's to a point where we got to hold the facts to the face and make them say it to us. If you don't care, you have to say it on camera, because this is what's been going on, and we tired of asking. And we're not a violent people at our heart. We have lived in violent situations, and we've expressed that and taken that conditioning on. But we want justice. We don't want to have to turn the loose dog on the oppressor. That's not our goal, but that's what they fear. And that's why policing is one of the most paid for industries in America, because there's a lot of fear of what Black people may do once we are free from oppression.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so at this time, I just want to take a pause real quick because Avery, you bring in so many gems to the family, and I just want to make sure that Reya'Sekhmet, you good, you following the storyline and the discussion that we're having right now.
Yes.
Avery used the term Stockholm syndrome, and I just want to make sure that you know, and the family out there that may be watching know what the meaning of Stockholm syndrome is, and that is Stockholm syndrome means when a person that is in a victimized state will identify and have love for the person who is doing harm to them. Okay, so that's what Stockholm syndrome means. You want to give it back to me a little bit and see and put it in your mind, and how do you take that? You want to rotate on it and think about it?
Yeah.
We'll come back to it. Okay. All right. We're gonna tap back in.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, and really, that's what one of the hardest things for me was, and taking off my ego mask and me trying to fit in as a child with the world and mainstream pop culture. I had Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us do, and we want to be hip to what's new. We want to be the cool kid who has the newest clothes and the trendiest looks and fashion and know all the names. And I had to really check myself on what am I feeding myself? You know, they call it a feed, what you scroll up and down on your phone. That's what we're feeding ourselves, you know? And I had to check myself on what I was feeding myself, because if I say that I want my character to be of God, am I feeding myself godly food? And that's not to say that I'm someone who's disconnected from what is happening in the world or pop culture. I still know what I need to know, but I'm in it and not of it. It doesn't consume me. You know, I know that the impact that it has. So when I do consume it, I always keep an asterisk. Like I this ain't it, but I understand that I'm a human living in the 2000s, and I can't be too holy to reach the people. You know, I can't be too high up in conversation to not be able to help the people who need me, who may not have access to the information that I have access to. And so it's a balance thing, you know, really understanding that while we are in an oppressive relationship with the federal government, with a lot of different factors, being Black in America, we can't love the culture that is self-destructive. We have to do better. And that's the challenge that I put to myself and that I put to all Black Americans, to the point where I think next February we need a Black fast across the country. But that's real theoretical.
Facts.
You know, we all need to give up something that is destructive to ourselves, destructive to the culture, and really cleanse, because there are practices that we hold, like eating chitlins. It's 2025. We gotta let that go. we gotta let some of these practices go that culturally we've done as a people for generations. But just because we've done it culturally and it's been a tradition, we gotta start checking some of these traditions in the eyes of the spirit of the creator and saying, is this leading us to a more whole place, or is this leading us to a more destructive place? Because that's life, you know.
Family, a moment in social justice is a brief, significant event that captures attention and sparks awareness. A movement is sustained, organized effort aimed at creating long-term systemic change. So, Avery, my question is, with all the different social justice moments we've had while fighting for justice, how do we make sure that those moments don't just be moments, but moreover transition into movements?
That really is a great question. Ashe. And that's you answer that question, you'll get millions. but really it's understanding that there's a divine process, a divine arc of change happening surrounding all the generations. You know, Grandma Betty's generation inherited it. Cousin Jay, y'all's generation inherited, my generation, Ray, your generation. We all play a process. And when we can begin thinking beyond just our current generation and start to see before us and beyond us, that's really where it becomes movement and not moment. Because we can only build what needs to be built in this time for what's to come, and to be able to address what we're dealing with enough to pull some people out, strengthen our forces, and be able to address the work and challenge the work. And so really, we have, I'm gonna send y'all the information on it too after this, but we have 2 speakers coming to the Quad Cities. One was a co-founder of SNCC. The other one was and Dr. Frank Smith. He founded the African American Civil Rights Museum in DC. So he'll be coming in May, and then Mr. MacArthur Cotton will be coming too, and he was personally mentored by Medgar Evers. Got into the liberation fight when he was 14, I believe.
And make sure you send that information to us, fam. We will be there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be good. And really speaking, when talking to him, I spoke on a panel with him, and he said that he doesn't want this generation of youth to think that their liberation struggle is going to look like his. It's a different day, and we're going to need different tactics. And so while the liberation process continues, we have to take on recreating what our efforts look like and what efforts are the most achievable and effective in this day we're living in. And that's a conversation that evolves each generation to where we're not doing sit-ins anymore, but there is some type of action that needs to be done to change narratives and build new policy for the family and for the situations that we're living in today. And so I say that to say, while it doesn't look the same, we have to come together beyond our emotions and build tangible action that can be used to achieve a common goal for Black Americans. And we don't have a national Black agenda right now. So when these issues pop up and we're like, what are y'all gonna do? And they say, what do y'all want? It takes us too long to figure out what we want. So we don't get anything. And we gotta look at politics as a recipient of, like, they work for us. And we got to know what we want from them to be able to get that out. And sadly, it's too often where when we do have these situations, the energy dissipates. And so you'll have a big funding cycle to Black issues and Black problems after George Floyd. But then come 2025, those funding streams dry up. People are like, yeah, we know, we've heard it. And so really us getting clear on what our mission is and focusing on healing ourselves first. We can't heal everything if we're not healed internally. And we got a big problem, especially in the North, of thinking that we can bypass Black solidarity and build these coalitions without having solidarity in our own community. And for me, that is really healing that piece and actually healing our communities, healing ourselves, and then coming together to have common agenda. That's what the work looks like right now, because we're in a much more privileged space than a lot of our ancestors. And like there were rich Black people during the time of slavery too, and so it's not like we haven't had richness and real strong community in history, but we have significant wealth and we have a level of comfort that I think our ancestors were fighting for us to have. Now we can't remember that the fight was not about comfort, but it was about freedom. And so really taking this power and doing something with it.
Yeah, and there's the good brother, Baba Taka Kilimanjaro, author of the book, Ma'at Guiding Principles. He always talks about what was good 30, 50 years ago, far as tactic, doesn't work today. We have to have a new paradigm of tactics and approach to, I call it the three-headed monster, You know, that's was it capitalism, socialism, and economics. And we have to organize and we have to prepare ourselves. And to your point, we have to have self-love and we have to know thyself in order to have knowledge of self. And it's okay to be selfish for yourself so that you can have and gain this information. Because without it, you're no good to nobody else. Facts?
My theory. That's fact. I say burnt out help don't help. And really we are a burnt out people right now. You know, we tired of living in a society that sees us as permanent second-class citizens, as seeing ourselves as that. Coming from the pain we've come from, we have a lot of healing that has been done. And that's what I love about what you all are doing is you all are working from a healed place where a lot of people are working from a broken place. And it, even non-intentionally, it still hurts when we are moving from that broken place. And so anytime I see healed family doing healing energy, it warms my heart because it shows me that it's not just a individual thing, it's a movement. And it's more, you know?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, as I mentioned, the good brother Takai Kilimanjaro, you know, he is someone that has always said to do ma'at and to find that centered and to find that synergy and find that balance. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we do our justice because, like you said, coming from a healed place, as that good brother has always said, we find the best of our past and we capitalize off the best of our past so that we can continue to take that forward. And that's what we are doing here with Aakhu'Ra Squad, is to give the best of who we were so that we can take that and project it forward to become who we are and who we want to be in the future.
Remember, family, try to view these points and perspectives from the position of scholarship and not emotion. As Baba Kame has said, emotion will knock you up the deepest truths that you're really seeking.
Facts.
Facts.
And exactly, Reya'Sekhmet, you being a real soldier, you know, you being the Sekhmet that we know that you are, and family, Ashe. I say that because, to your point, Avery, I know this firsthand, but it's still disheartening to hear that such patterns continue to exist and persist. It reminds me of the work by Angela Davis, who highlighted the prison industrial complex as a continuation of slavery under a different manifestation. You know, this continuity and oppression truly underscores the urgency for systemic change.
Right, and family, I remember reading with my Barbara Asar to where I learned that the good sister Kathleen Cleaver once said, the struggle is as much eternal as it is external.
Facts.
Emphasizing that the fight for justice isn't only against external systems of oppression, but also involves confronting our inner challenges. Basically, it means we must address social injustices, internalize fears, doubts, and limiting beliefs that can hold us back. True liberation requires healing and empowering ourselves from within while aggressively working to change the external conditions that impact our lives.
Woo! A real lioness don't play. Teach.
Avery, this question can be challenging, but it's important. Considering all the historical and systemic injustices that have occurred, can Black people achieve true justice and equality if they're in relationships with white people or individuals from other races? For instance, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and stuff like that.
Okay.
So for me,
you might want to think about that one, fam.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's a lot of ways and paths to truth, you know, and the divine works different. It's the same divine, but it manifests different in everybody's life. And so as long as you have a core foundation of what your Black identity is for you, and you are a active participant in the Black liberation movement and process, I don't believe that it holds, I don't believe that anyone is to be thrown out and cast away. For myself, I have a beautiful Black girlfriend, you know what I'm saying? And that's how I move. But I understand
You
that
get
I'm not
10,000
everyone.
shades from us.
Hey, from the creator too, you know, I understand it's a blessing. And so for me, I think it's a personal choice. But what really matters is, how does your personal choice manifest into the Black liberation process? I believe in strong Black families. I believe that when Black men and Black women, Black boys and Black girls are moving in the same direction, our community is unshakable. And I think
Yeah,
that they
facts.
have systemically driven wedges in between us to where we have this mass media conjured war in between the Black man and the Black woman that it's not healthy and it's not internally originated. And we have to challenge that and really say, no, we love each other. We're here for each other. We ain't going nowhere. Y'all my sisters, y'all our mothers, y'all our brothers, y'all our fathers, our nieces, nephews, etc. And the love is strong. And all I know is I can only be the light that I want to see in the world. And that was the guiding principle for me to choose a beautiful Black woman to be my spouse, because I know that I am working to rebuild the Black family. And that means that I have to have a Black family, you know? And so that just
Right.
was my
Can't be no
rationale.
fence rider. You can't be no fence rider.
That was my
In order to
rationale with the situation. Yeah,
yeah.
and really ultimately comes down to what who's doing what for the community. Because I done seen some Black men with Black women who have done more damage to the community in the process too. And I think that it really is a personal character thing. If you are someone who really loves Blackness and you are someone who really loves who we are as a people, who at our core, not the ratchet, savage, all that, that's not what we are, you know. But if you are
And I
someone who believes, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. No, I'm agreeing with you. The only thing that I would say, and it just be a little pushback, is that I think that's why a lot of our movements and a lot of the ones that have been in the movement, whether it was coming out in and out of slavery, like the Honorable Frederick Douglass, um, the Honorable Sidney Poitier, the Honorable, Harry Belafonte, Quincy Jones, all of those people have done so much to try to elevate and move the needle forward, but they have that stigma of being in those interracial relationships, to where now all that movement that you did to try to push the movement forward, you just actually we took 1 or 2 steps forward just to take 5 steps backwards, because you're being the contradiction of what it is that you're saying. So that's the only piece that I would speak to. And I think all of those brothers that I just named, ancestors, deserve their righteous dues. But if we have to be critical, and we should be critical of our leaders, that's the area that I would say that was crucial to our demise.
100%.
Okay, Avery, it's time for the Sekhmet Zone. This is where I ask you a fun question.
Yeah. We don't want to get too deep into
Hey,
we
I'll
got
chop it up.
8-year-olds watching.
If you had a plane ticket, but that plane ticket could only take you one place, where would you go and why?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I would go to southern Mississippi at this point and do some deep research into the motherland of where our great grandma's from, and just where a lot of the stories that I've heard from our family culture originate from, and I've been down there, but I haven't had enough time to really experience and share with the people, with the culture, and just understand what is the root, what is going on back down there, to reconnect this northern conversation to the southern conversation, because it's so much heritage and so much documented things that have happened down there in our family that I don't have enough understanding on, and really being able to cultivate that history and bring it up and share it with the generations to come so it doesn't get lost. That's something important to me. And so that may be like videography, it could be photography, taking stories down and just documenting a little bit of what is remaining from when they were there, so that we can understand more of our story as we move forward into the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Avery, just to mention on time, we're at a point, where we have a few more questions, and I know we're over that initial hour 15 minutes that we talked about. Is it okay that we can continue to try to get through the rest of our questions, or, you let us know, how you doing as far as on time?
Well, let's keep rolling. Rolling.
All right, let's do it.
Family, as you may have picked up, I've studied a little on the good sister Kathleen Cleaver and the Black Panther Party for self-defense. She was the first woman to become a decision-making member of the Black Panther Party Central Committee. Her speeches and interviews amplified the message of Black empowerment worldwide. I mentioned her to ask you, do you have that special someone walking by your side and lockstep like you, with you, passionate like you, about fighting for what's right for the Black community?
Yep, my beautiful girlfriend, Nakaya. She's my better half. We go through all of it together. She from West End, Davenport. I'm from East End, East Moline. So we about star-crossed lovers as it gets, you know what I'm saying? And really, the balance of it all, there's certain things she grew up experiencing that we share together, and being able to break these cycles together and actually to my accountability partner, inspiration, and really be able to keep striving towards building a legacy that helps heal our family, but then create a family that can be an example for other families to emulate on how to overcome the Black struggle internally, and be a beacon of light, a beacon of hope for others, essentially. And so I give her all praise and love, and just appreciation, because it's easy to choose the conditioning. It's easy to choose what society wants for you. It's in a godless world, it can be hard to choose what's divinely for you. And having a partner to be there to support and guide and affirm with and build with, it's something I don't take for granted, sincerely. And so blessings to her, I say to her, but then just the family in general, it's the same. Like, y'all, knowing I got y'all here and doing what y'all do and inspiring the way y'all inspire. Aunt Sylvia, my mom, Joey, like the whole family and everything
Peace
that
to
we
Aunt
do.
Sylvia, England.
Oh God,
Peace to Aunt Sylvia, Arrington, England.
Sincerely, and like holding it down. Like, we all got so much greatness and light, and I feel blessed to be around such star power people. Sincerely.
Beautiful.
Awesome. And family, drop some hearts, power fist, thumbs up, or any emoji that represents the fact that you like this discussion that we are having right now. Or drop a comment right now showing your support for this discussion and this channel. And if you would like to support this channel, you can do so by being a book fan and give a gift of a book. Cash App information is $J&J-Life. Or if you want to send physical items, you can do so by sending them to the address J&J-Life, P.O. Box 35081, Des Moines, Iowa 50315.
Oh, all right. Well, let me say it one more time for the family. Family, Cash App information is $JJ1Life, and that's the numeral 1, family. Or if you want to send physical items, you could do so by sending them to the address J&J-Life Ma'at, P.O. Box 35081, Des Moines, Iowa 50315.
Let me say it one more time for the family way in the back.
The back.
Cash App information is $JJ1Life. Or if you want to send physical items, you can do so by sending them to the address J&J-Life P.O. Box 35081, Des Moines, Iowa 50315. This information is also embedded in the description below.
That's right. And where'd you get that from? Saying it 3 times.
Dr. Umar, because you need to understand, and overstand the information.
Ashe.
That's right.
So, cousin, Malcolm often spoke of the necessity of multifaceted approach to liberation. In your view, what strategies do you believe are needed to affect real change?
My number one thing, I'm gonna go with conflict resolution, internally and externally.
Facts.
You know, the battle internally is a battle with spirit, and it's not a battle to have. You know, we got to resolve it, and it's an internal conflict conversation. But once we can be at one with spirit, living in purpose, on purpose, with purpose, that really allows us to move with power in this world and be able to build the kingdom in ourselves and start to build the kingdom outside of ourselves around us. But we can't do it alone, you know, and it's not just a Black American work, it's a humanity work. And while we do have to pick our community up and uplift our community, we all in this together. You know, we can create Wakanda, but they're gonna come knocking one day, and they're gonna want a piece of our peace. And so, really, being able to,
we're not giving up, you know, the secret.
Hey, the game is sold separately. But really, that conflict resolution piece is a key tool, emotional regulation, a key tool, because right now as Black Americans, we're ruled by our emotions. You know what I'm saying? Whatever feels good, sound good, look good, we go towards, and we got to be able to challenge the emotions with our character, with our principles, and be able to keep that inner compass strong and working, because everything that glitters ain't gold, and there's a million paths out here that to go down. We got to know which ones to take. And once we can build with ourselves, then we can start building with other communities and coalitions and groups. But if we destabilize, we can't afford to be out here trying to do everything with everyone. And so conflict resolution piece, let's resolve the conflict in the community so that we can start to use these resources and allies or whatever they want to say they are to collectively achieve what we're trying to build out here, not just for our own community, but for planet Earth.
Right. Facts. And I would just add, family, that I believe tackling these issues requires a coordinated effort on a multiple front. You know, we must be relentless in our pursuit of justice. But before we can do that, as I have mentioned earlier, we have to organize ourselves. As the good brother Avery has said several times in this discussion. Look, family, author Taka Kilimanjaro, I'm going to keep hampering this good brother's name, has several books out there on organization, leadership, the guiding principles, to name a few. Get all his books, all 30 plus of them, you know what I'm saying, to educate yourself so that when the time do come, you'll be prepared to see this thing through.
Facts.
And to add to that, the self-determination piece, you know, really being able, once you are self-aware and self-organized, self-determination, build a plan, know where you're going, actually have a path to walk, and then keep yourself aligned with that inner compass, because the world's going to challenge and test and shake us to our foundation. That's what the world does. We got to have enough internal stability to be able to stand strong through all the storms and still have that love in the darkest of times that we know we have. And being Black in America, we ain't had no choice but to have that love in dark times. And so it's nothing new to us, but we got to see the assets that we have as a community and work those, and not just focus on the deficits going on in the community.
Beautifully said. And family, that's why I've always been curious and eager to learn about our culture and history, which is why I chose to create the J&J-Life podcast to provide a space where we can explore these topics and inspire others to awaken their consciousness. And thank you, cousin, for creating this book. It's awesome.
Facts.
100%. Thank you for creating this platform. It is very awesome. And you have inspired me, Ms. Reya'Sekhmet, apologize, but you have inspired me to be able to get out here and share more with the community, with the youth, with the family, and just be a light for the change. And you are a blessing to the family, and you got my full support in everything you do. If you ever need anything, y'all got my information, my number. I'm one call away, and we definitely gonna be making a trip up there to see y'all and meet in person and just give you your flowers in real time, because you deserve them. And you stay solid on this path, and you stay righteous and pure in your pursuits, because you are blessed. And to have the information you have at the age you have, look out, world. You're going to do some big things, my girl.
Thank you so much.
100%.
And Barbara, sorry, do you want to share on that topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just say this, and this kind of veggie backing off of what you said earlier, Avery, and that is, from my experiences, I believe in the struggle for justice and equality. Our people, Black people, we must recognize that the fight is ours to lead. Allies and non-Black communities can stand in solidarity, but they cannot fight our battles for us. And I wholeheartedly believe that, family. It is through our own efforts, our own sacrifices, and our own resilience that we will achieve true liberation. And even if we stumble, even if we fail, and this is just to your point, Avery, about, that you've come across some Black people, men and women, who had done no justice for the movement. And, so I just say that, even if we stumble, even if we fail, we learn and we grow from it to come back even harder, faster, stronger. Look, family, our history is filled with examples of our strength and determination, as the good brother Avery has so beautifully stated, from the resilience of our ancestors who endured the unimaginable horror of slavery, excuse me, to the brave men and women of the civil rights movement. It's our fight. Allies can support us by educating themselves and amplifying our voices and challenging the injustices within their own communities. So at the end of it all, family, we must be the lead, and we must do it all. We must be the change that we want to see. Take the risk and claim the victories. And I'll have my playing with this, Reya'Sekhmet and family. That is, our revolution is ours to own, and it's ours to own the actions that we will shape in our destiny.
Beautifully said.
Facts.
Interesting. Cousin, did you find the significant injustices the Quad Cities like Rock Island, East Moline, and Moline?
Yeah, so we got a lot of different injustices going on right now. One specifically, there was a police shooting in Rock Island recently, and it hurts because we've seen it so many times in our communities. And we say we want better, we say we want change on both sides. We have to get serious about the change. We have to get serious about implementing solutions and using those tools that we have created to create better results in the future, because it's time for us to get real serious about change. And it's nice to hear words of appeasement and get band-aid solutions, but we need actual solutions. And word to Malcolm X, you stick a knife in my back 6 inches, or a knife in my back and pull it out 6 inches, that's not healing. 9 inches, that's not healing. Healing is when you take it all the way out and when the wound heals itself. And we haven't had that in the country. in the Quad Cities, we haven't had that moment where the knife is taken out completely and we've been allowed to heal. And if we say that is where we want to go as a community, as a society, we have to get serious about it. And it's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. In our own community, we got to stop practicing self-destructive practices. That's not our culture. Outside of our community, we got to change these institutions and these systems to stop driving the resources away from our communities and start putting the resources in our community, giving our community the due respect that we deserve in planning cities, in deciding what policies and work gets done, so that we can be equal players in the table of building our society in a way that reflects the way we want to go. And so it's a lot of work to be done, but the injustices, I believe God brings the problems when the solutions are ready. And we got some solutions to bring to life.
Facts.
Facts. And family, the phrase do for self emphasizes the importance of Black people taking responsibility for their own empowerment, education, and community upliftment. I can't say it enough, family. And peace to the ancestor, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, as he has said, we need to practice Kujichagulia. We must be self-determining, self-defining, self-respecting, and self-defending. And this is our way of our own identity, culture, and values to address systemic issues without waiting for external validation or assistance. True liberation and progress come from within the community, driven by its own members' actions and dedication.
Facts. So, fam, do you have anything coming up here in the near future? Travel, speaking engagements, stuff like that?
Constantly mentoring, constantly speaking. But the fun stuff for me right now is the urban development work in West End, Rock Island, and being able to.
And that's Rock Island, Illinois, for the family who may not know.
Yes, sir. Rock Island, Illinois, Quad Cities on the map. You know what I'm saying? But really, man, being able to build there in communities we grew up in, and bring things to the community that have never been there, and really bring resources to the community that the community has never had access to. That's really what's most exciting to me right now. And the way we do the work, it's less of us just being developers, and it's more of us empowering the community to become developers. We see the people who've lived there this whole time of this investment as the people who we want to prioritize in development efforts and give opportunities to create upward mobility economically. And so we're not doing just building stuff to build stuff. We're building things with people and with intentional purposes. And so all the actions, the high school clubs, the alternative school clubs, everything that we do is geared toward empowering people to be able to have the power for them to change the community in the ways they want to change it. And so it's inspiring to see people realize how city government works, how funding cycles and streams work, and to be able to demystify community building for people who have had their communities controlled by external opposition for so long. And so that to me is really the most exciting work that I'm getting to do. And we're working with financial institutions, colleges, city governments, state government, like all the different players, HUD, you name it, EPA. And so it's great work happening. But I think too often we treat some of these organizations like the big bad wolves who as soon as they come around, there it goes, it's going to be co-opted. But we can start to co-opt some of this stuff too. We got power as a community, and we got influence as a community, and I'm playing ball. You know what I'm saying? We all playing ball. Like if y'all got a goal, we got a goal too.
Play it. So.
You know what I'm saying? And so we in the game now, and I got a heart for this work, and not just seeing our people in a higher position, but seeing our people have power and self-determination to be able to create the world that we want to live in and the communities we want to live in for ourselves. And so it's just, I feel blessed to be able to be someone who can actively build and reimagine. And I give all the glory to God sincerely, because that's really what has
That's
allowed me to shed who I was and become something new that can be a divine instrument to bring in more just divinity and righteousness back into earth. And so
yeah,
I'm grateful.
yeah. And so, fam, how can one get a hold of you if they have
Definitely.
questions, want to purchase your book, or just want to connect? Also, do you have a way for people to show their appreciation and or donate, or some way for the family to support?
Yep. So you can follow me on YouTube at Kingdom Building with AP, and I do Mondays. I give out a really just a tools for building the kingdom within and building the kingdom outside of ourselves. Because oftentimes we want to do it, but we don't know how, or we don't have a community to do it with. And similar to you, Raya, being able to have a platform that has a community, teaches the tools, and shares our personal journey, that really has been something that is something I struggled with in the past. That if I would have had a strong spiritual community to attach to, that I would have been able to, I feel, do a lot more, a lot quicker. And so just being able to share my journey and share the great people I come across with is that platform. On Instagram, I am Eastside Wave. It's EASTSIDEWAVE. Facebook, Avery Pearl. And then you could DM me personally to buy books. The website, the Amazon link will be back up soon. But until then, you could DM me personally. And that's really all I have right now.
Okay, facts. We appreciate that. And we'll put all your information in the description below when we release the video. So we'll make sure we have all of that either embedded in the video and or in the description of the YouTube link.
Definitely. I'll send that over. Yep.
Are there any current authors or scholars whose work you follow and find influential? And do you have any books or resources you would like to recommend to the family?
Definitely. For me, Amos Wilson, 100 years of anti-Black policing. Definitely. It's a great way to have a intergenerational conversation about the struggle and where we're at today and what we can do about it. But really, Amos Wilson was someone big for me. And he has a blueprint to Black Power, which is a little more scholarly, but he has a bunch of different books on different topics of Black identity, Black consciousness, self-awareness, and how to uplift ourselves. I feel like all the information has been curated by the ancestors out here. If we really wanted to, there's the books, the scholarship to be able to have the marching orders we need to build a great nation. And so he was someone who, when I found this information, it felt like I was reading my own work. I'm like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Dr. Kwanzaa Kunjufu, he's another one who just really has done a great job of breaking down the information and demystifying how we need to educate ourselves, how we need to educate our youth, and where we need to go as a people. But really, there's this motivation wise. Eric Thomas is someone who I listen to just to get that divine covenant education, keep my spirit motivated, focused, remembering that it's God's work, it's God's blessings, it's bigger than me out here. And I'm constantly meditating and just working to keep my life close to spirit. And that's reading religious texts, that's studying, taking time to listen and be with God, going out in nature, you name it. I feel like God is the greatest teacher, you know, and when we carve out time in our life for God to be able to have that one-to-one relationship, the return of an investment on that relationship is something that you can't put a number to. And so like meditation, prayer, affirmation, being able to have a strong relationship with that inner voice, that is something I'm big on. And I wake up very early to be able to have that time to be able to sit with God and get my downloads for the day, and like throughout the day, periodically reconnect so that I understand and am centered and rooted in righteousness, so that I don't have
Yeah.
to worry about, am I living right? Am I moving right? I already know I'm moving from a place of love. I'm living from a place of love. I am love.
Facts.
And so I don't have to worry about it then. I already know everything that's coming is that. And if it's not, I can hold myself accountable and say, okay, that wasn't what I was intending to be. And so reconnect. And so that's what I'd say resource wise. I'll have some more for you in the future. And like I said, I'm a resource here.
Just drop it in the email, you know.
I got you. I got you. I got you.
So fam, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to bring to the table today before we wrap this up?
I will say to my youth that are on this path and this journey of self-awareness and God-centeredness and really building the kingdom within and outside of yourself, know that consistency is the power. We may not see the return on investment directly day one. Your friends might be able to go out there and have fun and do what they're doing, and you might think that that is the goal, but the true goal is having a strong foundation in times that are good and bad. And you got to be able to stay consistent in your pursuits of righteousness to really receive the benefits of having a righteous life. Because the pleasures and pursuits that come from the earthly pleasures, the food, the media, the pop culture, is fleeting at best. And when you chase that, you chase a life of nothingness, sincerely. But when you chase the spirit and the actual righteousness of the world, you can build a life that is of meaning, of legacy, and of power in divine order. And that's the power of life, not the fleeting pleasures, but the spiritual growth and development that you can pass down to future generations and a future light for this world to have and hold. And so stay consistent on your paths and know that we need y'all just as much as y'all need us. And so at any moments, y'all need support, guidance, clarity, light, love, whatever it may be. When you're feeling low, reach out to the people who you have in your life that provide light to you and guidance to you, because that's what we're here for. And times will be hard. Just because we're divine people don't mean times won't be hard. Being divine people means in those hard times, we can still find the light. We can still find the silver lining, and we can remain a light for those who feel dark in those times who don't have the light in them. And so it's not all going to be roses. It's going to be hard times. There will be trials and tribulations. But remember that we're doing it because it's bigger than us. And we got y'all got us, and together anything is possible.
Facts. And family, know that you know a little about you. Anything you wanted to say?
No.
I didn't want to speak too soon. That's why I had to stop myself. Family, now that you know a little more about Avery Pearl II, get his book today. You can DM him, reach out to him, hit him on the social media platforms that he just mentioned, and we'll make sure we have that information embedded in this video or in the description below. You know, again, get his book, family, 100 Years of Anti-Black Policing.
Don't take our word for none of this information we provided today.
None of it.
Do your research one more time. Do your research one more time for the family way in the back.
Do your research.
Talk about it sincerely.
Will you please grace us with the final word to bring our episode to a close?
I thought he did a great job with what he just said. What you think?
I'd say a little more. It's not about where you are, it's about where you're going. You know, it's never too late to turn around and do something new. It's always too late to keep doing the same things that haven't worked. And for ourselves, for the community, for the world, it's time we challenge ourselves and build anew, and we can do it together. And that's where it's blessings to be on this platform, be sharing this conversation with family, and to know that despite the distance, We are committed to the same work and process and efforts to uplift our people, uplift this world, and uplift the spirituality that is all. And so I thank y'all for cultivating this space, and I bless y'all with all the energy I got and all the love I got to be able to go and do all the great things y'all will do in the future. And so thank you.
But there it is.
There you have it, family. Until next time, please absolutely devour, crush, and smash that like button and subscribe.
Peace and blessings, family.
Peace and love. Thank you.
Ashe, blessings.
Ashe.
Peace and love is the key. The R represents the essence of truth, justice, harmony, balance, order, and humanitarian reciprocity and righteousness.
J&J-Life podcast. J&J-Life podcast.
The J&J-Life podcast was created to give the family a place and platform to embrace their spiritual awakening and consciousness. J&J-Life is dedicated to showcasing the beauty of our culture and educating our people and those that want to learn this work. Smash that like button. Peace and love is Nikki.